walking through the security and this and that, and people are just staring. I can feel them staring, even though I can't see them.
The overall scheme of things, and if you look at that sort of time frame from a point of view of when you're born to when you die, that's only a very, very, very small part, or time of your life.
Thanks for tuning in. This has been Hermit Radio.
Welcome back. This is Hermit Radio. I'm your host, Cameron. Thanks for tuning in. It's going to be another episode of Zen Time tonight, so for about 10 minutes, I'm just going to kind of talk. And tonight's lesson is Your Life is a Garden, and how to nurture seeds of positivity in your garden that is your life. I really like this analogy a lot because if you do any reading about spirituality or Buddhism or yogis or anything like that, this is something that they use kind of a lot. And the reason they use that a lot is because it's good to visualize. It's very beautiful to visualize, and it's something easy that we can all relate to. You don't have to be a Buddhist or a yogi to understand what they're talking about when they're talking about seeds of positivity and how to nurture them and how to make them grow into beautiful flowers. And the way that the way that I understand this is your mind is a garden. Your brain, your thought, your imagination is the soil. Throughout your life, you're going to be in situations that are not pleasant, and you're going to be in situations that make you uncomfortable. You are not really going to be able to avoid that. The only thing you can do, that what we've talked about in the past, is how you're going to approach it, how you'll deal with it, and how you move forward with it. But this talk is a little bit different because there are some things that you're unaware of that have already been planted in your mind that are deep-rooted things, like weeds that are always in your thought process. And a really good way to figure out what those things are, if you're not aware of them, the one hard thing that people find the most difficult in meditation is to sit still. It is really hard to close off that mind chatter that gets in the way. And when you try and sit and be quiet for 10 minutes, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, because right from the get-go, your brain starts bombarding you with thoughts. And it's very easy to get trailed off and follow them down a rabbit hole. But if you go into it with the intention to look for these thoughts and maybe make some notes in a book or a notebook rather, about what those look like, you'll start to see repeated behaviors and repeated patterns, repeated thought processes. For me, when I would struggle the most, when I was doing bodybuilding, I would tear myself apart, like, I'm not big enough, I'm not, this muscle part isn't as shaped as I want it to be. When I was in the Army, it was, I am not a good enough leader, nobody likes me, I'm a failure, everything I do is bad. Even though I knew I was good at some things, I really would stand out in some areas and people would talk highly about me, but it would always be the one or two people that would be closest to me in my work environment, in my relationships, the one or two people that could get to me the deepest, because I valued what they thought the most, and I let those deep-rooted seeds of something they said or something they thought about me, I'd let that get in the way of my own self. An easy one to think about is bosses, girlfriends or boyfriends, parents. These people know how to get in between your spiritual armor, and they know how to get to places that really bother you, places that you don't think about often. And when they plant seeds like that, it may take years for you to even realize that it's a problem, and it's been growing this whole time. So think about this. I'm going to create an example. When you're a child, when you're at your most vulnerable, in my opinion, you're influenced very heavily by your adults and by people around you. You're almost like a sponge at that point. You're trying to soak up all this information. That's when you're learning the most. And then somebody like a father figure or a mother figure tears you down over and over again, right? That could be an extreme level where you're talking about abuse, or really not even so extreme sometimes. Sometimes even little nagging things that they may say or think about you, they really bother you, and it sticks with you all the way until your adult life. Now, guess what? Now you have kids, and you carry on those same traits. And sometimes you know exactly what they are, and you don't want to be like that. But sometimes you can develop traits of your own that you're still passing on to other people. It may not be your kids, maybe other people around you, people in your work, people in school. And when you sit quietly for however long you want, you'll start to see those things popping up. I'm not good enough. Dang it, I should have done that yesterday. Or what am I going to do a week from now? Fear, anger, anxiety, they steep in, they come in. And you can look at it one of two ways. You can look at those things and think of it as too much of a burden to bear, or allow it to be a lesson for you to learn and think about how to approach those things. You find techniques to make those things less of a burden for you. Because if you can sit quietly and see those things coming to you and figure out a way to handle them or approach them, or even better, to just let them go, because sometimes there's never anything that's going to fix that. Some weeds, some seeds are deeply rooted, and there may not be anything you can actually do to fix them other than to just let them go. Forgive yourself, forgive the other person involved. If there is another person involved, forgive them, let it go. That may be easier said than done, but I have experienced these things in my life too. I'm not just speaking with no knowledge. I've had some pretty serious things happen in my life that I've had to let go, and there was nothing that anyone was going to do for me to fix it other than myself. And you may be thinking, this is hard. Well, I can't sit for 5 minutes. Okay, well then sit for a minute. Sit for 2 minutes next week, and the week after, and the week after. And the point is not to make you miserable. If sitting in silence makes you miserable, don't do it. Find another way. Meditating doesn't mean that you just have to sit and close your eyes. There's plenty of ways to meditate. You can meditate while you walk. Go for a walk. You can meditate while lying down before you go to bed. It probably will lead to a much more peaceful sleep. I do that sometimes for myself. And I feel like that kind of ties into the mindfulness trainings we were talking about last week. Mindful eating, mindful walking, mindful thinking. Mindful thinking is the key to your garden and having beautiful flowers planted in them. Good, healthy habits for mindful thinking and making positive seeds in your mind. Having a good intention every day when you wake up, right? So this is an example of that. When you wake up, what do you want to do with your day? Start planting the seeds. You know what? Today I want to do the best I can at being happy and cheerful, and I want people to see my face, and maybe it'll bring somebody else some joy today. That's a seed. That's a seed you want to plant in your mind. And when you do that in the morning, your subconscious mind will guide you to do that. It will lead you to do the thing that you want to do. If you'll find yourself sitting at work and you'll just start smiling, and then someone else will see your smile, and then it'll make them smile. And that's just one example. I've done it. I've actually done that experiment. I've done it for myself, and it works. Sometimes all someone needs to make it through the day is just to see somebody else smile, for one of two reasons. Either because it gives them hope that there's somebody else smiling out there, or B, it'll influence them to have that same level of joy that you're experiencing, and it'll make them smile too. So in closing, when you're thinking about your garden, your mind, your sanctity, your temple, you want to keep it clean. You want to keep it positive. You want to keep it happy. Whatever that looks like for you. You know yourself better than anyone else. What makes you happy? What if you had an imaginary house and you wanted to build it any way you wanted to, with whatever you wanted in it? What would that look like? Wouldn't that be a beautiful place to just get to hang out in every day? And so I'll talk about this probably in next week's episode, but when you can go to that place, your perfect home in your mind, that's taking refuge. And sometimes you just need to take refuge to get away from something that's bothering you. But the prelude to that is planting the seeds of positivity and learning how to do that, not just in the morning, but all day long, encouraging good behavior and good thought patterns all the time. But thank you guys for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're getting something from it. But that's it for Hermit Radio this week. I'll see you next week.